Hi, I'm Rachel Dillon, and together with my husband, Marcus Dillon, we lead Who's Really the Boss podcast, where we highlight the joys and challenges of running a business with your spouse or family. Our mission is to strengthen families and businesses by helping listeners avoid the mistakes we have made so they can lead and live happily ever after. Welcome back to another episode of Who's Really the Boss podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Well, I feel like, some of the ideas or thoughts for the conversations that we're going to have, they really are inspired by other things that I see. And so sometimes when I see things, they're such clickbait, but it's like the 5 ways to do whatever, or the 3 answers to, all your life's problems or whatever it might be. And so really thinking through, what does that look like as it applies to accounting firm ownership, or, having your own accounting firm, leading your own accounting firm. And so really talking through the 5 firm owner mistakes to avoid. And really what we're going with here is, what are the 5 lessons that we've learned that we want to share, so maybe someone else doesn't have to learn them the same way we did?
Oh, you're only giving me 5? There's so many that I can own at this point. I feel like I've matured quite a bit to actually be okay with the mistakes that I've made. Maybe it's the attention deficit coming in there too, of like, if it says that there's like 25 things, I'm like, that's too many. I'm not reading that. I'm not clicking on that. But if it says 3, I'm like, well, I could probably do 3 things. So here we go. We're going with 5 today. Yeah, I'm sure it depends on the platform too. So like BuzzFeed, I feel like that one's always like 20 plus, and they just want you scrolling as long as possible, have all the pop-ups that come along. And, Instagram, it's probably 5 or less, right? So
That's right. So starting with number 1, we want to avoid building a nightmare instead of building your dream firm.
Yeah. And a lot of times what we see, my journey is no different than a lot of our listeners and friends who have firms. And you're just a creature of habit. So you build what you grew up in. And so a lot of times I looked up and I realized what I left, I had now built and owned, which is not what I intended to do. So it's one of those where it's a trap that easily we all fall into. So if you're trying to avoid late nights and 80-hour work weeks and annual touch points with clients, and then you go start your own firm, it may be very likely, if you don't have a plan in mind, that you look up one day or wake up one day from what you thought was a dream firm and you're in the middle of a nightmare. And so where we saw that, and where a lot of people get frustrated within their own business, is there's usually a tipping point, right? And so for us, we kind of talk about that a lot, and we use it as where we saw inflection and we went one way because we didn't want to keep going the other way. And it wasn't fun to maintain. So what we had built just didn't turn out to be the dream firm that we intended to build. So no intention. We kind of lost it along the way if we did have intention. And then the other piece that was quickly defined, I guess, is the role. So the role as the owner, what is your role within your firm? And whenever you started it, was it to do 1,000 tax returns a year and to kind of be the number 1 production asset of the firm? Or were you really called to go serve a select few or build a team or do something really cool? Who knows? But that's where a lot of people talk about visualization. And if you visualize what success looks like 1 year out from now, what does your day look like? Can you picture yourself living out the life that you want 1 year from now? Like, even from what your morning looks like to your shutdown routine, what your family dynamic may look like, or what you do as far as extracurricular activities. So if you can do that with 1 year, you know what success looks like. So you work towards success. And then can you do that 3 years out? That's a much bigger project. And you kind of have to maybe do a little bit more planning to make sure that 3 years out, you just don't put it out so far that, hey, I've got time to improve. I've got time to work on that. And even if you need to kind of back off the year and do 6 months out, what do you want your life to look like a year from now? And I think that is really important this time of year because we are recording this on April 15th. So for a lot of our friends that just exited a tax season, what do you want tax season that you're finishing up in 2025? What does success look like? And if you can picture that, then hey, let's go work towards it and make that a reality.
Yeah, which is so very different than dreaming about, let's say, maybe some people get stuck in dreaming about the outcomes of the firm instead of dreaming about the actual firm. And I am not singling you out or any one person out, but I think so many times we dream of, I want to have a firm that makes $1 million, or maybe it's $2 million. Maybe you've already passed up the million. Like I want to, inflation, like now it is $2 million. Like I need a firm that makes $2 million. I want to have this kind of car. I want to live in this neighborhood with this house. I want to, have this kind of watch, whatever it might be. And that's what you think about when you think of your dream firm. And that really has very little to do with what your firm is, but more of what the firm produces. And so that's where we're saying, like, don't build a nightmare instead of your dream firm. If getting to that point of now you have the $2 million and you have the nice car and the nice watch and the nice house, but it's a nightmare to maintain that. You're constantly having to say no to things or people. You're having to miss out on things because you're just trying to maintain this firm so that you can maintain these things that you have. Those things start to mean a whole lot less when you don't have anyone to share them with. So that's just something that we've learned. Again, we're just sharing from our personal experience that really the things don't matter much at all. You could be in Switzerland living and having, 18 years old, very little responsibility and just kind of unlimited time and the world is your oyster. But if you feel alone and there's no one to share those experiences with, it's not as cool as, if your best friends or your family were there to experience that with you.
Yeah. And thanks for calling me out because I do like houses. I do like cars. I do like watches. So, those are some of the tangible goals that could be seen with milestones that are achieved in any business or life milestones, if you will. Some of this could equate, growing up in a sports family and also having children that did different sports, mainly swimming, right? But if you equate it to running, I would assume that most people that are runners, that call themselves runners, actually enjoy running. They don't just enjoy the finish line. And why would you put yourself through the pain of running, which is probably not natural for most people, just to experience the finish line? And whenever I visit with firm leaders or business owners, so many people put themselves through just difficult seasons, like just chaos of business to have an exit. And you think even about employees, W-2 employees, they deal with crazy situations and like bad situations just to get to retirement. And that is not the way that we should be kind of living our lives, I guess, if you back up and take full perspective of it all. And I just heard this recently on another podcast where you should become less enthused with the success or the milestone and care more about the becoming that you are. And so that runner kind of analogy, you would embrace calling yourself a runner and enjoying the thrill of running and not necessarily the race or the finish line.
Yeah. And so just to highlight what it looks like, what we should be focusing on as we're building a dream firm is really focusing on what do you want your role in that firm to be? What does that look like? And then what does your day look like, day in and day out, every week? What does that look like in your dream firm? And then backing into some of those other metrics or outcomes of how to get there, but doing it on a daily basis, enjoying each day, and having that firm kind of match your values and the lifestyle that you actually want to live, not just the things that you can maybe show to other people or say that you have.
Yeah. And while we're talking about showing, that brings up our second point. And the biggest thief of joy that's out there is comparison. So that second point being comparison, that is the mistake that you have to avoid as a firm owner, because you never know what's going on the other side of that screen or the other side of that camera. And one person, if you think about it this way, one person's dream firm may be another person's nightmare, and vice versa. So all that to say, like, you build the business that you want to build and have full confidence in it. We all have fear of missing out and comparison and just anxiety that goes along with, like, that's just the age we live in. And especially if you have kids, you see that, with the screen time and the amount that you see on not only maybe your kid's phone, but if you look at the screen time on your own phone and think about all that time you could get back, 5 to 10 hours a day for most people, I would think. So, but comparison is just where you can kind of make sure that you don't fall in that trap, because it's easy to in all aspects of life. And so firm ownership is no different.
Yeah. And it's important to say that some people are going to have to work harder to get to certain points than others. And it all comes down to, things that we can't necessarily change, like inherent talent, skill set, even just things that people are interested in. So then it becomes easier because it doesn't feel like work. They're constantly learning about this or refining the skill because they're so interested in it that they just are always thinking about it and always working towards better in that area. Some other things are location, potentially where you live and what type of clients are around you. And we're talking specifically to accounting firms. It might look different. You may have to work harder, and you're definitely going to have to work differently than other people. So comparison is really a waste of time. If we're comparing like, well, he said he did this and I did it and it didn't work for me, it's probably not going to. So it's really, again, when you're thinking about that dream firm and what you want your role in your firm to look like, and then figuring out the best way with your skill set, your team's skill set, the area that you're in and who you serve best. All of those things are a much better way to spend your time and energy thinking about and kind of refining and growing, rather than looking at what somebody else is doing and just comparing the two firms, trying to do it apples to apples, because really it's just not.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because every social media platform, and if you think about the social media platform that probably most of us use, it's LinkedIn, and we don't help. Like, we post a lot and we fuel different things. So how do you get over comparison? How do you feel that people can actually leave comparison aside and put that thief on the bench, if you will? That way they can go and actually work on things that are fruitful and productive in their own lives versus just endless scroll. Because I've gotten there personally on LinkedIn where it's just like, I'm done. I give up. I'll never be a success in the eyes of what this world says success is. So other than just age and maturity, how do you speed that up?
Yeah, I would say one, and I'm just a little bit skeptical. And so I feel like it's always going to the source and like really talking to people and getting to know them. If you do really want to model your firm after someone who's gone before you or who has already done it, then getting to know that person. For us, we try to put out as much as we can as far as how it really went, what it looked like, the mistakes we made, the lessons we learned, so that people will really understand, yes, for social media post, we're trying to put out like the best face forward. But if you want to talk about what that looked like the months leading up to that, the years leading up to that, all of those things, or just kind of the setbacks that we faced in between, then it's really getting to know people and not just looking at their social media feed. So talking to them. The other part is getting your own accountability partner or like support partner. So having somebody that you can go to and work with who knows you and your team and kind of the goals and vision of your firm, and then can help guide you along and help put a plan in place that's specific to you and all of the things that you have going, and really play off those strengths rather than just trying to copy or mimic somebody else.
So that brings us to that third point. And what picture most people paint is perfection, right? And so the third kind of mistake that firm owners could make is constantly chasing perfection. And I've been guilty of that myself. The hard truth behind all of that is perfection isn't attainable. You get to whatever that perfect size is, that perfect client, that perfect revenue mark profitability, and what's next? I think we're just driven in ways that perfection isn't there. It's kind of fleeting. And so I don't know if it's a mirage or whatever visual you want, but for me, it's something that can never be attained. It's something that you kind of have to constantly be okay with, that you're going to make mistakes as you go. And like you said, in the comparison mistake point, there's just, you need people around you that can kind of help keep you accountable and also understand that perfection isn't a real thing.
Yeah, consistency is always going to yield better results than perfection. So there might be the best way to do something or the optimal way to do something, but if it's not practical, if you can't apply it on a consistent basis, then it's not the perfect way for you or for me. So I can go all in and say, I'm going to work out twice a day, every day. I think 75 hard challenge. So it's for 75 days, and maybe you can make it for 75, but what happens on 76? Like what happens on 300 after that 75 days? What do those days look like? So, or can we do like something maybe a little less extreme, but can do it, I can take a walk every day, whether that's inside or outside, whether that's 5 minutes or 55 minutes. And so really just looking at things like that. Another one might be for us, like posting on LinkedIn every single day. So somewhere that was set up as a goal that we wanted to do, and just see. And so then it's like, oh my gosh, we're just trying to put anything out there. And it's like, okay, if we're consistent, if we can do 4 days a week and put out good content versus I have to do 5 days a week, so I'll just put out anything. It just has to be a balance. And so being consistent, because what happens at the end of the day, sometimes minds are crazy places to go. And if you can't be perfect, then you're like, well, then it's just not worth doing at all. And so that's why consistency often beats out perfection, because a lot of time perfection is not sustainable. So even if you can achieve it at a point, then it's not sustainable. So then you end up not doing anything, and doing something then in that case would be better than doing nothing.
Hey, but those 75 hard challenges, that's what people talk about. Like that's what gets the views and the clicks and, the discussion, right? Is something like that.
I feel like it's died down.
Well, it's past the 75th day of the new year, right? So no one's talking about it anymore. So I don't know what percentage of people like quit around day 12. Isn't there some magic number after so many times of doing something, it becomes a habit? I'm sure you know that off the top of your head.
I think that it's different for every person. There are maybe some averages or something that helps, but really that is different for every person. With 75 hard, which was something that's very interesting, is that if you miss any part of it on one day, you have to start over at day one. And so there's probably not a whole lot of people that talk about if they didn't quite make it or if they had to restart multiple times and then still didn't make it. Yeah, they're probably not. They're probably not sharing that on social media. It's only the people who actually made it. So
yeah, the only thing in my life, I try to avoid stuff like that because I know I'm going to fail. And you want to just build in acceptance once that day comes or once whatever that non-consistency is. And I think there's great books about that. Craig Rochelle just wrote a recent book about that exact topic. So even, for example, my Bible app, right? You know, you can have a streak if you do the daily kind of reading and all that fun stuff. And if you miss a day, you have to start over, kind of that same 75 hard concept. So from a chasing perfection, I would just make sure that all firm leaders, CPA or business owners in general, know that perfection can't be caught. You're just chasing after the win, right? Is kind of how the old saying goes.
I think the recovery strategy for perfectionism is that you have to intentionally fail at something and then start again and see that it's okay, that it's okay, that you could pick back up and keep going and the world doesn't shut down, the world doesn't end. So that if you're not doing something the very best, but you're just doing something, you're still making progress forward. So even if you don't have it all figured out, but you're still trying, you're still doing things and headed in the right direction, you're better off than if you did it one time perfectly for such a short amount of time and then gave up after that because it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to firm ownership or types of firms, you've got tax practices, you've got the full larger firm options where you may have a variety of different practices or service lines with audit and consulting and all that fun stuff, or you may have a CAS practice. And so when I think about just firms in general and the word perfect, it's real easy to see like there is no perfect firm because within a firm, you have people and people aren't perfect, right? And so I think once you start realizing that this isn't a textbook scenario, as much as we all kind of think back to our education, and how easy it seemed, right? Whether it's a CPA exam or a classroom type setting, those textbook scenarios made it real easy, right? We knew the answer, but we didn't have to have the conversation with the team member about what they were working through or how they needed to step it up in one area or another, or deliver the hard news to a client. Like you can't do that in those settings. You kind of have to learn on the fly. And so whenever you look at perfection, especially when it comes to a CPA firm, you have to give yourself a lot of grace because of who's in that firm. Maybe if it's even only yourself, no one person is perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so another mistake to avoid, and this is a big one, and not often. This could potentially be overlooked by the accounting industry or by accounting professionals, but lacking passion or lacking vision or lacking both. So firms need both. They need both passion and vision to be successful.
Yeah. So I think the main thing there is passion fuels vision and vision gives passion direction. And so they are intertwined as tight as you could imagine. And whenever we back up and look at the just, the world of accounting or the world of technical tax, let's say, I haven't met too many people in my career, which now spans decades, who are passionate about, let's say, tax or a specific section of the tax code. And that also goes to the perfection piece. Like as soon as you know it, they're going to change it on you. So all that, kind of leads to most of the people I know that are in accounting are passionate about other people, like relationships. And that is ultimately why they have chosen to stay in the career or the industry that they're in. They may have not started in accounting because of people or relationships. They started because of maybe their technical acumen, whether it was in math or accounting. They just did really well with numbers. And they had to choose along the way to stay in our industry because of something more than the technical piece. So I would say it goes a lot of times back to that passion. And like I said, I have never seen someone passionate about technical accounting or technical tax.
Yeah. And I think this is really important too, having the passion and the vision when you have a team. So when you have a team, you need to have both. Passion is great to get people really excited, but they have to know where they're going, or maybe everybody's going off in a different direction. And vision is super important, again, to actually achieve a goal, to actually achieve making a positive impact, which is what is really important to us and to our team. And so without a vision, maybe you're going, but you could be going in all different directions. Vision without passion, again, nobody's going to jump on board with you. Maybe they understand what you're trying to do, but they're not super excited about it. And so really that's kind of how those go hand in hand, especially when you have a team. You want them to be excited about the direction and then willing to move with you, or sometimes so excited, maybe they have even more passion about it than you do, and they're leading the way. And so, and getting other people on board. And so that's really where that comes in. And I think it was easy for us in the very beginning of the accounting firm, was just to put your head down, do your work, go home, right? Let's hurry up and get everything done as fast as we can so that we can spend time not working. We can spend time, outside having fun, doing whatever, with friends or family. And that really wasn't a good strategy to have. Yes, we all had kind of that same goal. We had outside priorities, but we spent the majority of our day wishing we were someone else and trying somewhere else and trying to hurry up and get somewhere else. So it actually started to look not so great in the firm, even though we were young and we thought that's all what we wanted. We don't want to spend our time working or thinking about work. But actually, that really wasn't a good culture to have at the time. And we were really lacking vision, and we didn't really have any where to direct our passion. We didn't really know how to put it in words. So really clarifying our vision, mission, and values, that was something that became really important, but really helped the firm and helped the culture as well.
Yeah. So give me some examples of, maybe not inside of a CPA firm, but what's an example of something where there's passion, tons and tons of passion, but no vision? So I think an example of passion with no vision, I go back to vehicles and cars and things like that. And so just the output alone, and maybe a sports car, and it just idling, kind of being there without the vision, how to use all of that power. I could see that, it's just without the vision, the passion is kind of wasted on just sitting there idle, maybe in traffic. There's a ton of memes out there where this thing will do 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, but then you're in rush hour traffic, right? So I can kind of equate that to the CPA firm and passion without vision. But then whenever you think about vision without passion, that's a lot of times where I think we are maybe as an industry. And it's just kind of the check the box, the same as last year. You almost wish your life away, kind of to your point of how we used to operate the business and not have fun doing it. I think a lot of people could say they're in that stage of life or stage of business ownership where they've got a vision, right? It's not a great vision. The vision is to get through the day, but are they passionate about what they do and helping others? And so I think that's where it just overall adds to the success of your fulfillment with the business and fulfillment in life. And that's definitely one of those mistakes to avoid as a firm owner.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last mistake to avoid, which if For me, I did have some perfectionist tendencies. I think I've recovered from all of those now, but once upon a time. And so this one is you can actually rest wrong. So if I needed one more thing in my life that could potentially be done wrong, this is like a new fear unlocked that you can rest wrong.
Yeah. So talk about that. How can you like rest is a good thing, right? And especially for a lot of our friends who are coming off the roller coaster of another tax season, just thinking about like, I'm going to do anything but firm related items. So what does resting wrong look like?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I heard this on a podcast as well, or read it, on social media somewhere about resting wrong. And what it means is not necessarily that, like this is you're gonna have like this huge consequence as far as like illegal or anything like that, but more of the personal consequence that you're never fully rested. So a lot of the things that we do, and I'll just use personal example, is like scrolling social media, that you're doing things to kind of numb out instead of actually rest. And so really just citing in that rest doesn't mean you have to sleep. So resting doesn't mean just that you have to, take naps or sleep 10 hours a night, but that resting is actually doing something that you really enjoy, that kind of recharges your batteries or reinvigorates you, maybe reinvigorates that passion that might be lacking because you're tired, but that actually doing things that are more numbing just will continue to contribute to how tired that you actually are.
So compared to where we were, let's say a decade ago, or even 2 decades ago, when we had just a lot more energy, kids or no kids, but how do you value rest more today than you did earlier in your life?
I feel like for the two of us, because we had kids super early, we were 23 and 25 when we had our daughters. And so uh, I think I've always valued rest, but it has looked different at different times. And so for us, thinking about like, for example, and this means that I'm just super old is really what this means. But when we were in like our 20s, thinking about what we would do on the weekend. And it was how many activities can we squeeze in? Like, we're going to go with friends here. We're going to do this with our small group here. The girls have, 13 games, and then we'll take them to the park or the zoo or the poor man's zoo, PetSmart. And, like how many things. And if there was a free hour or 2 hours, we were going to fill it with something. But again, that still felt different. And then we were ready to go back to work, on Monday. Now, when I think about rest, I'm like, oh, like not a plan. What rest feels like, the perfect weekend feels like maybe one activity scheduled over from Friday night to Sunday night. And then of course like church, but like one extra activity besides that. And that feels like how I need to rest now.
And would that activity include other people?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's the piece where when you're in the moment, whenever you are working, I used to be real guilty of it. Whenever we were at our busiest, whether I was within the firm that we own or at another firm, I would always go shopping, like to avoid work and different things. And it would just be consumption of more and more and more. And then on the other side of that, end date, the deadline, if you will, you just keep going. You just keep pushing, and you really don't stop to embrace the goal or the deadline that you just finished. You keep running, and part of that is even in a situation like this. I heard someone recently say that you run through the goal, like you don't stop right at the finish line and just shut down. You kind of have to run through the goal, ease off, and then maybe going back to the runner example, you hardly ever see anybody just finish a race and just stop, especially if like they're a seasoned runner. You see them kind of carry it out, maybe go the block and kind of wind down. They're not going race pace or anything like that. So for our friends that are just now finishing and about to enter into maybe a season of rest or a season of reflection, what are some tips and tricks to kind of make sure that they don't abruptly stop and maybe tear an ACL or something?
I think really what it is like not filling that downtime with things you don't enjoy. So especially for us, when we had a heavy tax practice and we had a lot of projects between January and April 15th, after that, we would start stacking, like starting April 17th, all of the things that we couldn't get to during March and April. So that meant client meetings, calling clients back, doing one-off projects that weren't related to the prior tax year and that tax return. Even some, family and friend commitments we would start putting in because maybe we had pushed off parents and grandparents and siblings because we just had to say no to everything March and April. And so we would way over schedule. So I think that that's something to remember as you're coming off, and rest is going to be a really important thing. Is not that you have to go and like, okay, well, I can only rest if I can lock myself in my room and sleep for 3 days to try to catch up on all the missed sleep before, but really putting in some things that you really enjoy. Maybe you do really enjoy other people, and that is what recharges your batteries. Then that's what you put in, but trying not to overschedule so many things. And then I think the biggest right now is like putting down the phone, like putting down the technology and allowing some space for actual hobbies or interests, and just to kind of let the mind relax and get back into a state of, what do I really like? What really brings me joy in life?
So you've rested, you've had a period of rest. How do you come back? Because I know that a lot of people, you get in that, you get in that season, and we've talked about this, like even on vacation, you kind of need 1 or 2 days before your body finally like says, hey, okay, we're on vacation. And then you've got to come back at some point. You've got to boot back up the laptop. You've got to go back to work, if you will. So what are some tips and tricks on actually moving from rest back into a sustainable work pace?
I was going to say I'm the worst person to ask about this, because even if I'm off for like 4 days, I'm like, what do I even do here? How do I work? I don't remember this place. What am I supposed to be doing? But maybe that makes me the best person, because here's some things that I know help me to be able to come back. So before I completely shut down or check out, I typically write my priorities of what I need to start on when I come back. Because again, it's like complete mind erase. If I'm gone for more than 3 days, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't remember anything that happened previously. So if I can write those down, so whether that's typed up in notes or scheduled in notifications or reminders for me whenever I'm scheduled to come back, then I don't have to spend the first 30 minutes or hour reminding myself what I was working on and the status of where things were when I left. So really kind of, we talk about that in a shutdown routine, that can be done at the end of every day is, kind of what are my priorities for tomorrow, or where did I leave off on these projects or tasks? And then the other thing, and this, it just goes right along with it, is kind of setting your priorities for that day, not necessarily for every day, or not every single thing that needs to be done between now and the next 6 months, but really focusing on what needs to be done today for today to feel like a success, and then getting through those things. If there's extra time, that's bonus, and you can do a few more. But if not, at least you did the things that were most important to set yourself up for the next day, and then continue to build on that momentum.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit on it, making the comeback easy as well. So like leaving your space in a good spot, right, to where you can kind of just sit back down and go, go again. It's kind of like the equivalent of, cleaning your house, making sure everything's square before you go on a trip. And then you have like a routine like we do when we come back in town from a trip. There's like these different things that we do to know that we're back from vacation, right? So on the way back from the airport, we eat at Lupe Tortilla just to kind of know, hey, we're back in Texas. We have good Tex-Mex. Maybe we didn't leave Texas, but it's just one of those where that's kind of a habit or a ritual, if you will, and kind of get your mind back to where what you're going to pick up the next day. And then I think the other piece that I've kind of drifted away from and need to get back into is whenever you're ready to jump back in, probably not just jumping back in, but starting with something that really you've missed and that builds excitement and kind of going back to that passion and that vision and all that good stuff, like something that you geek out on within your business or something that you really enjoy doing and starting with that. So maybe it's like the tech puzzle of a tax return or whatever that could be for those people that are wired that way. Maybe you really just enjoy client development. So maybe the second or third day back, you kind of have some client meetings with referral partners or prospects or things like that. And then the third that comes to mind is team development. Maybe you just really miss your team while you're gone. And so whenever you come back, probably not your first day back, but maybe your second or third, you build in some team time to reconnect and kind of get back into a rhythm to where you can pick back up at a reasonable pace and, not hurt yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So just some highlights of the episode and kind of what we covered as far as the 5 firm owner mistakes to avoid. The first, it's not a dream firm if it's a nightmare to maintain. The second, avoid the comparison trap that some people will have to work harder than others. The third, stop chasing perfection. Consistency is always going to trump perfection. So instead of chasing maybe optimal or the best, how about chase practical? What can you practically do on a consistent basis? Making sure that you have both passion and vision and that those two are working together to run your firm. And then making sure that you're actually resting in a way that's going to make you both have more joy in your day, more satisfaction, and then also just more productive is what hopefully that will lead to.
All right. Well, those are 5 mistakes. We can talk about 5 more on the next podcast, or we'll just leave it at that and go further with the conversation next time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great conversation. Thanks for having it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks for hanging with us to the end of another episode. Leave us a review with your thoughts, comments, and feedback on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Join us again next week for another great conversation.